The ingredients for this sweet treat date back to medieval times and can be made in every household during the December season, Christian and Jewish alike. And while not being the most cooperative cookie, its symbol is found all around at Christmas time. We're exploring the history and origins of Zimtsterne. I'm your host, Glenn Warren, and welcome to another serving of Seasons Eatings, the podcast which explores the history and origins of your favorite Christmas foods. Seasons Eatings can be found wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Seasons Eatings can also be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky. If you love the show, then I humbly ask you to share this podcast with someone you think would love to hear more about the history of Christmas and the foods which shape the holiday we love so much. And if you want to give me suggestions for a future episode, just email me at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com. All the links can be found in the show notes at seasonseatingspodcast.com. If you've ever worked professionally with meringue and nut pastes, you already know this. Some cookies cooperate. Zimtsterne do not. And yet, every December across German-speaking Europe, and far beyond it, these white-topped cinnamon stars return to bakery windows and home kitchens as if they always belong there. Today I want to spend some time with Zimtsterne, not just as a recipe, not just as a Christmas cookie, but as a cultural artifact, one built from spice trade, religious symbolism, protein chemistry, and a winter memory. Because Zimtsterne are structurally delicate, historically layered, and culturally shared in ways that are easy to overlook if we only see them as seasonal sweets. So let's start at the beginning. What exactly are they? Zimtsterne are literally cinnamon stars. They're traditionally made in Central European Christmas cookies made primarily from egg whites, sugar, finely ground almonds, and cinnamon. In most classical formulations, there is little to no wheat flour. Structurally, they're closer to a stabilized almond meringue than to a butter cookie. They are rolled, cut into star shapes, topped with a thin layer of reserve meringue glaze, and baked, or more precisely, dried, at a relatively low temperature to preserve the white finish. Technically speaking, they sit somewhere between a macaron shell and a baked marzipan confection. The defining characteristics for Zimtsterne is a crisp matte white meringue cap, a tender chewy interior, pronounced cinnamon aroma, and a slight surface cracking that signals proper drying rather than browning. For professionals, what's interesting is not just the flavor, but the balance of instability and control. This is a cookie that relies on protein foam strength while simultaneously undermining that strength with nut fat. It is by design a controlled tension. That structural tension mirrors something deeper. Zimtsterne are inseparable from Christmas, particularly within German-speaking regions. In medieval and early modern Europe, cinnamon was not just an ingredient, it was power made edible. It arrived through long trade routes controlled by empires and merchant elites. Its origins were intentionally mysterious. Cinnamon appeared in royal kitchens, religious ceremonies, and medical texts. It was associated with purity, preservation, and holiness, qualities deeply resonant with Christian theology. When cinnamon appeared in festive foods, it wasn't accidental. It elevated the dish. It made it worthy of holy days. So when we encounter early references to cinnamon star-shaped confections served to rulers like Charles V in the 16th century, we're seeing more than dessert. We're seeing a performance of authority and divine order. At Christmas, the star is unavoidable. The Star of Bethlehem, the guiding light leading the Magi to the Christ child, is one of Christianity's most enduring images. It represents revelation, guidance, and divine presence in the world. When Zimtsterne became associated with Advent and Christmas baking, the star shape took an unmistakable meaning. In largely illiterate societies, food functioned as storytelling. You didn't need to read scripture to understand a star at Christmas. You could hold it and break it and share it. The white meringue glaze of the cookie, often kept deliberately pale, echoed imagery of purity and light. The act of baking these stars during Advent aligned the kitchen with the church calendar. This is where public history becomes intimate. Zimtsterne weren't teaching theology explicitly. They were reinforcing it quietly, year after year through repetition and ritual. The star shape evokes the Star of Bethlehem. In domestic Advent baking traditions, shape functioned as storytelling. Food reinforced theology visually. But the star does not belong exclusively to Christian symbolism. In Jewish tradition, stars mark time. A new day begins when the first stars are visible in the evening sky. The appearance of stars signals transition, from sacred to ordinary time, from fasting to eating. In some Jewish German communities, almond-based star confections were served after Yom Kippur, at the meal that breaks the fast. So we have the same visual symbol operating in two theological frameworks. In Christianity as revelation and divine guidance, in Judaism as the marking of sacred time and renewal. Zimtsterne exists in that overlap, part of a shared winter culinary language shaped by proximity. And to understand Zimtsterne historically, we have to talk about cinnamon. For much of medieval and early modern Europe, cinnamon was an elite ingredient. It arrived via complex trade routes and signaled wealth and ceremony. Sugar was similarly costly. Almonds were not an everyday ingredient in Northern Europe. Early cinnamon confections were luxury foods served at courts and ecclesiastical feasts. Over the 17th and 18th centuries, expanding trade made sugar and spice more accessible. As these ingredients filtered into middle-class kitchens, festive spice cookies moved from courtly display to domestic ritual. By the 19th century, Zimtsterne were firmly embedded in Christmas cookie assortments of Central Europe. They transitioned from elite spectacle to inherited tradition. What's remarkable is that the same food, almonds, cinnamon, and sugar, could carry such different meanings while remaining culturally familiar. And that's not an accidental coexistence, it's shared geography. Jewish and Christian communities lived alongside one another in Central Europe for centuries. Markets, ingredients, and seasonal rhythms overlapped, even when belief systems diverged sharply. Zimtsterne exists in that overlap. The season of winter creates common needs: warmth, sweetness, light. Across religious boundaries, people responded to winter in similar ways: by marking time with ritual, by creating special foods, by gathering indoors. Zimtsterne are part of this shared winter language. They are flourless, or nearly so, making them adaptable. They rely on nuts and egg whites rather than butter, reflecting older dietary patterns. They do not demand perfection. Their cracked icing and uneven edges speak to home kitchens, not institutions. This flexibility allowed them to move between regions, between households, and between meanings without losing their identity. We'll explore how the Zimtsterne are made after the break.
What's up, dudes? I'm Jerry D of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, books, fashion, and fads.
If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, he's got it covered. Wait, is there a lot of things to talk about for the 80s and Christmas?
Well, you got the movie giants like Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, and A Christmas Story. There are TV specials like Muppet Family Christmas, Claymation Christmas Celebration, and a Garfield Christmas special.
Plus classics shown every year.
You also jam out to Last Christmas, Do They Know It's Christmas, and Christmas in Hollis. But most of all, it was a time for the most bodacious, best-selling Christmas toys ever, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers,
and Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yes, them too. We cover them all, plus much more, including standard segments like Hap Hap Happiest Memory, Gag Me with the Spoon, The Other Half of the Battle,
and Chant with the Littles.
So tune in to Totally Rad Christmas everywhere you get your podcasts. Turn the clock back and dive into those warm and fuzzy memories.
Later, dudes.
Hi everyone, I'm Dwayne from the Tinsel Tunes podcast, and I have a questionably unhealthy obsession with Christmas, and I love Christmas music. So come with me on a journey as I go into detail about the history and stories behind a wide range of Christmas music. For instance, did you know that Silent Night has the honour of being the most recorded Christmas song of all time, and has been recorded over 137,000 times by separate artists? Or that White Christmas was actually written in the height of summer. Each song, either recent or a golden oldie, has a background, and I want to share them with you. Come join us for our second season and listen at tinseltunes.com. We are on all the main podcast services, or you can find us with a simple Google search. Also follow us on all the social networking platforms, and I hope to interact with you soon.
Unlike many Christmas cookies, Zimtsterne begin not with butter and flour, but with egg whites and sugar, whipped together into a glossy, fragile foam. Before electricity, this step required time, strength, and patience, often done by hand in winter kitchens where the cold air actually helped stabilize the mixture. Whipping introduces air. Proteins denature and form a network that traps the air. Sugar stabilizes the foam by increasing viscosity and delaying overcoagulation. That alone tells us something important. These were not rushed cookies. Almonds, finely ground, are folded in next, along with cinnamon. Almonds were expensive for much of European history, but they were also practical. They stored well, they don't spoil in winter. They made sense in a season where fresh ingredients were scarce. And when you fold in the ground almonds, you introduce fat, which weakens foam integrity. So a seasoned baker negotiates enough aeration for lift, enough sugar for structure, enough almond for chew, not so much fat that the foam collapses. And now the cinnamon contributes both flavor and slight moisture absorption. The resulting mass behaves more like a thick almond paste suspended in meringue. There's very little fat in a Zimtsterne, no butter to melt, no flour to dry out. The dough is soft, sticky, and almost awkward to handle, which is why it's often rolled between two sheets of parchment sugar-dusted paper rather than directly on the table. This is not a cookie that submits easily to control. And then there's the shape of the star. Rolling must be done carefully, often between parchment. Cutting introduces stress, especially at the star's points. Cutting the stars is slow work. Each one must be lifted carefully, placed gently and topped with a thin layer of reserved meringue. Each star is placed on a tray, one by one. Before baking, a thin layer of the reserved meringue, saved from earlier, is spread on top of each star, not piped perfectly, just spread carefully with a small knife or the back of a spoon. The glaze must stay white, never brown, so the oven is kept low. The door is sometimes cracked open. The cookies are baked at a low temperature, ideally between 120 and 150 degrees centigrade. That's 250 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit to avoid browning. So what you're aiming for is a controlled dehydration. The exterior firms up and the interior remains moist and chewy. It's a narrow window requiring experience and attention. Historically, this wasn't baking in the modern sense. It was drying with intention. And what emerges is something between a cookie and a confection, crisp on the surface, soft beneath, fragrant with spice. And this process, slow, repetitive, slightly imperfect, is exactly why Zimtsterne became a Christmas tradition. They demand time at a moment when time is already symbolically charged. They require care at a season associated with reflection and preparation. In Christian households, this kind of patient making mirrored the spirit of Advent: waiting, anticipation, restraint. In Jewish households, this method aligned with post-fast food traditions: gentle, nourishing, sweet without excess. Even today, bakers know this. Zimtsterne are not the cookies you make at the last minute. They are made ahead. They rest. They improve with time. No two Zimtsterne look the same, and that's important. Their cracked tops and uneven edges are not failures. They're evidence of hands. In a culture that increasingly values perfection, these cookies preserve something older: the idea that care matters more than control. When someone says, "Mine never looked like the picture," they're actually participating in that tradition. If the oven is too hot, the top's brown. If the dough is too wet, they spread. If they're overworked, they toughen. And when they come out, they're delicate. The surface may crack slightly. The points may round. No two are identical. In modern times, the industrial bakeries, variability is reduced dramatically. Mechanical whipping ensures consistent foam structure. Depositor machines pipe star shapes directly. Humidity-controlled ovens minimize cracking. Stabilizers may be added to improve binding and shelf life. The result is uniformity. Handmade Zimtsterne reflect negotiation between structure and collapse. Industrial Zimtsterne eliminate negotiation. Both exist today, but only one visibly carries the trace of hands. Every December, people make cookies they could easily buy, and that tells us something. We don't bake Zimtsterne because they're convenient. We bake them because they slow the season down. They make time visible. They make waiting tangible. They require attention. They make memory physical. Christmas moves quickly. Shopping lists, travels, obligations. Zimtsterne don't. They insist that you stop, that you focus, that you pay attention. And maybe that's why they endure. The attention is something Christmas, at its best, asks of us. Protein, sugar, nut fat, and spice arranged into something fragile but lasting. Even the smallest Christmas cookie can hold centuries inside it. I'm Glenn Warren, and thank you for listening to this serving of Seasons Eatings. Seasons Eatings is available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And please, if you can leave a review about the show, we can spread the Christmas cheer. And if you let me know you've left a review, I'll send you a Seasons Eating sticker as a personal thank you. And I would also love to hear from you. Send me an email at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com. Let me know how I'm doing, suggestions for future episodes, or just to chat. And I know that we can all get busy, especially during the holidays. So even sharing the podcast with someone who loves Christmas would be a great help. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can buy me an eggnog. Head on over to seasonseatingspodcast.com, click on the little cup in the corner. Each small donation helps with the daily running of the podcast and is greatly appreciated. All music for Seasons Eatings is used under the Creative Commons license.